Hello, my name is Lance LeComb. I'm the Manager of Public Information and spokesperson for the Metropolitan St. Louis Sewer District, or MSD. Joining me later will be Brian Hoelscher, MSD's Executive Director and Chief Executive Officer. We are here today to provide a brief update on MSD Project Clear. Project Clear being MSD's $4.7 billion agreement with the Environmental Protection Agency and the Missouri Coalition for the Environment. But perhaps more importantly, the purpose of this presentation is to provide you with information about how MSD proceeds to go forward with developing more robust stormwater services, if you would, the next steps in stormwater services for MSD, which we perform on behalf of the citizens of the City of St. Louis and St. Louis County. So before I get into those two topics, I'd like to just provide some information on MSD overall. I'm not going to go into every bullet point here on this slide, but I'd like to point out two that I think are most germane to the conversations we have on a day-to-day basis with the customers that we serve. Point number one, MSD, we are two utilities under one umbrella. We are a wastewater utility and a separate stormwater utility. Wastewater utility, folks use water in their homes and businesses. They use sinks, they flush toilets. We take that water away from that home through a sewer system to one of 7 regional treatment plants, treat that water to environmental standards, and return that water to the environment. That is our functioning as a wastewater utility, and that is paid for through your monthly MSD bill. Separate from those activities, we are also a stormwater utility, and Brian will go into more detail about what that means, but both utilities are funded by separate revenue mechanisms, and we also account for those activities separately as well. Stormwater is paid for through taxes. Wastewater is paid for through your monthly MSD bill. My point here is that there is a firewall between the two activities, and it is important when you're considering what Brian will be talking about a little bit later. The last point is the other point I'd like to touch on before moving on to the next slide. MSD is the 4th largest sewer utility in the United States, right behind New York, Chicago, and LA. 4th largest in the United States. But we certainly don't have the 4th largest population in the United States, or a population that compares with those 3 areas that I just mentioned. How and why are we the 4th largest? Well, same reason we have 90 municipalities that we serve. As folks moved out from the city into the county over the years, they all wanted their own local police, fire, and other services, and they also wanted sewer service. So since 1954, when MSD was first created, we have taken in 79 separate sewer districts, all built to a different rhyme and a reason, a different standard, different processes for how they developed. And a lot of what we've been doing is harmonizing and bringing up to one standard all those systems. Certainly, if we were to start over today and rebuild a new sewer system, it wouldn't be the type of system we would start with today, but it's what we have, and it's what we're working with, and we are doing a very, very good job with it. Moving on to this slide. So a few moments ago, I spoke about how MSD, since 1954, has taken in 79 separate sewer districts, all built to a different rhyme and reason, and how we've been harmonizing that integrated system over the years. But today, the biggest issue we're dealing with are the issue of sewer overflows. I won't get into too much detail here, but sewer overflows essentially act as relief valves for the sewer system. When too much rainwater gets into the wastewater system, that water has to go someplace. Every sewer system has a finite capacity, so if you have rainwater getting into the system, it can quickly overwhelm the system. So in lieu of perhaps having thousands of basement backups every time it rains, these overflow points act as relief valves in area creeks and streams. Certainly not a desirable state to have. We are talking about a combination of sewage and rainwater going into our creeks and streams, but it is a situation we've been dealing with, and it really is rooted in how our system was first built starting in the 1850s. So this map here, you see a lot of dots, a lot of colors. What this map represents is our overflows that we have eliminated since 1992, or overflow points that will be eliminated or addressed in some way, shape, or form in coming years. Between 1992 and 2012, MSD spent over $2.7 billion to eliminate over about 350 sewer overflows. That work today continues in the form of MSD Project Clear. And MSD Project Clear is a result of an agreement with the Environmental Protection Agency, the Missouri Coalition for the Environment. It calls for spending $4.7 billion over 23 years. And MSD Project Clear began for MSD in 2012. And really, at its base level, it's our initiative to improve water quality and alleviate wastewater concerns throughout the St. Louis region. And how are we doing that? By making a long-term generational investment in our sewer system, in our infrastructure. And it's building and designing and doing work that's totals billions of dollars of cost over a generation. And what do those various activities look like? Well, on this slide here, we really have three major points of focus, or as I personally term them, buckets, if you would. The first focus is for us, get the rain out of the system. I spoke earlier how too much rainwater will get into the wastewater system, overwhelming that system. Well, we have activities to get the rain out of the system and hold that water back from our system. We also have repair and maintain our system. That's another bucket for us, making sure that we're developing and implementing best practices, make sure we're doing everything we can to maintain that system properly, that we're on a regular schedule for repairs. And in this category also, customer service. We have 1.3 million customers throughout our service area. We want to make sure that, especially as a government entity, we're providing the best possible customer service. And then in the third bucket, if you would, build system improvements. These are what I term big ticket items. We're going to be building large storage tunnels to store stormwater. These tunnels are going to be underneath the city of St. Louis and St. Louis County, the longest of which will be almost 9 miles long and 30 feet in diameter. We're also going to be building above ground storage tanks, and we're going to be rehabilitating and rebuilding the existing sewer system as well. All total, though, this work here is MSD Project Clear, designed to protect our system and serve our customers better, eliminate those overflows in the area creeks and streams, and also to alleviate basement backups. Where do we stand now in 2017? Well, we started MSD Project Clear in July of 2012, and again, that's a continuation of work we've been doing since 1992. Since 2012, we have eliminated 36 of those sewer overflows. That means we've stopped a combination of raw sewage and stormwater from going into area creeks and streams from 36 overflow points. By addressing overflows, you also do address basement backups, so it's helping improve customer service. But regardless if you know a lot about sewers or just a little, I think the one thing that everyone can certainly appreciate is money. When we first started this program, and we're looking at launching the first 4 years of MSD Project Clear in 2012, we thought it would cost about $971 million. While the first 4 fiscal years of the program have actually come in at $905 million. So most importantly there, we're bringing this program in under budget and on time. Over the next 4 years, and we're halfway through the first year of that 4-year cycle, we project to spend another $1.6 billion. We certainly hope and plan to be able to bring that in certainly at budget and on time as well. But these are points that we will always be accountable for to the public and always be transparent on, because this is the public's money that we're spending. But again, to reiterate, the first 4 years of MSD Project Clear coming in on time and under budget. With that being said, that's my update. We will now move on to the rest of our presentation, and really what is the largest part of our presentation here, to talk about the next steps with stormwater. And joining me here to do that is Brian Hoelscher, MSD's Executive Director and Chief Executive Officer.
Hi, I'm Brian Hoelscher, the Executive Director and CEO of MSD. I'm going to go over some of the stormwater next steps. I'll break this presentation up into two pieces. One, I'll go over where we're at with providing stormwater services to our customers, and then I'll talk about what the future could look like. On the first slide, I want to talk about Proposition S, which was passed in April 2016. Proposition S was a 10-cent property tax per $100 valuation that provides funds for MSD to operate and maintain its public storm sewer system throughout the entire district. Prior to the passing of Proposition S, MSD received no funding to operate and maintain the storm sewer system in the western half of its district, west of 270 and Lindbergh. We now have the ability to do that. With the passage of Proposition S, MSD now provides three main services district-wide. First of all, we provide stormwater management throughout our service area. We enforce rules and regulations for stormwater improvements, do stormwater complaint investigation and logging, as well as evaluating all stormwater issues within MSD's boundaries. We also do water quality sampling and monitoring of area districts, area creeks and rivers. We also have to monitor compliance with our Phase 2 stormwater permit. We do this with 59 other local municipalities. The purpose of this permit is to help regulate and monitor the flow of pollutants that go with stormwater runoff into our local creeks and streams. And then finally, the last service with the passage of Proposition S, again, is the operation and maintenance of the public storm sewer system. On the next slide with the map, let's talk about where we're at with the passing of Proposition S. To begin with, MSD collects a 2-cent property tax. That pays for all the regulatory work that has to be done by MSD. MSD has always had this tax in place. We now have a 10-cent stormwater tax that allows us to operate and maintain the public storm sewer system throughout our district. That's a total of a 12-cent per $100 valuation property tax that MSD collects to provide services. With the passing of Proposition S, we also released a limited amount of funding in order to address flooding and erosion within the district. This is a limited program of approximately $67 million, and projects are located throughout the entire district, including in areas which have never had this kind of service in the past. What other types of problems are there out there that we'd want to address? Well, if you see on this slide, it's an example of some of those problems. One is localized flooding. This would be stormwater standing in people's backyards after storms. It can be quite a nuisance for folks. There's erosion, whether it's in somebody's backyard or, as you see on the screen here, next to a street. There's also regional flooding. This is the flooding of larger creeks and streams. We did experience back in December 2015 the flooding of the Merrimack River, but similar type of events happen on some of the local creeks and streams, such as River to Pear, Fishpot Creek, and some of the smaller streams. We know we have these stormwater problems because we've gotten that information from you, our customers. Keep in mind, MSD does not own creeks and streams. Those are owned by the local property owners and in some cases the subdivisions. MSD is also not a flood control agency. Management of the floodplain belongs to the local municipalities in the area. However, MSD is in a place to be able to collect funding to address localized flooding, erosion, and regional flooding in the area. If we do address this, you'll find out that MSD is not going to fight Mother Nature. MSD is seeing much larger storms in much shorter period, and oftentimes you'll find the solutions we propose to be getting people out of the areas impacted by these types of events. The next slide shows where these issues currently exist. The information we have here comes from customers. We've identified approximately 500 stormwater issues, which we estimate will cost approximately $1.5 billion to resolve. You will note that the dots on the map are located throughout the entire district. Don't pay too much attention to where some of the dots are concentrated. That is really the result of past funding we've had. We find that if we have areas that have funding to resolve problems, we get more complaints. You'll notice out west that the dots are a little thinner. The reason is we've never been able to resolve issues out there. As we resolve stormwater problems, we know that residents will come to us with other stormwater problems that they haven't mentioned to us before. The next slide is what some of the potential solutions are to some of the stormwater problems. If you look on the left-hand side, property buyouts is a big one. In some places, there are homes which just shouldn't be there in today's environment. If you look on the left-hand side, this is an area up in North City where we purchased out an entire subdivision where water got so high in some cases, it actually came through the front door. On the right-hand side, sometimes basin construction is the appropriate solution. We'll capture the stormwater in a place and keep it from presenting problems to the downstream property owners. So here are some natural solutions to creek bank erosion. If you look at the top two pictures on the left-hand side, you can see the erosion next to these homes. On the upper right-hand side, you can see what it looked like when water came through, when the remains of Hurricane Ike hit the area at the end of calendar 2008. On the bottom, you can see what it looks like after the improvements. On the bottom left, you can see the armored stone and the biostabilization that was used in order to reestablish the creek bank. And on the right-hand side, you can see those improvements working during a large storm. Other potential solutions simply hold stormwater back or take it away from where it's causing a problem. On the left-hand side is an example of rainscaping. These are basins which do two things. One, they allow the stormwater to percolate into the ground and not run off. They also provide storage. This keeps that water from causing flooding problems downstream. Also, it's also possible to put in the typical storm sewer. Sometimes we just need to move stormwater from where it's causing a problem to further on down the line where it can be properly handled. So putting this all together, let's look at those key problems and what some of the possible solutions are. What are the three key issues that the customers have given us? One is localized flooding. Again, backyard or local flooding that may cause problems on streets as well. What are some of those solutions? We can put storm sewers in to move the water to where it won't cause a problem. We can potentially buy out properties. In some instances, the stormwater local ponding problem is on one property at the bottom of the hill. Oftentimes, the proper solution is to just simply buy out that property owner and allow that property to serve as the place where that stormwater gets stored. We can also do rainscaping, and that's holding back the stormwater so that it doesn't cause the problem in the first place. Next, erosion. Two ways to address that. One, you can fix the erosion through some kind of natural creek bank stabilization. The other thing is property buyouts. Sometimes the erosion is so bad that the proper thing to do is simply buy out the properties that are impacted and then use the eroded area, fix it, and allow that to serve as the conveyance for stormwater in the future. Finally, regional flooding. Again, this is examples such as the Merrimack, but folks have experienced regional flooding on floodplains throughout the area. The only potential solution is to buy those properties out. MSD has learned that you can't fight Mother Nature. If people are in areas that flood, the proper solution is to buy those properties and allow them to move to a different location. There's some key information we need from you, our customers. What is a priority? I've now listed 3 potential problems that we've already heard from customers. What are the priorities of these 3 services, and are there other services that we should consider? A big issue is how does the public want to pay for these services? Currently, MSD uses a property tax method in order to collect the revenues for stormwater services. That is a tried and true method that everybody is familiar with. There is another mechanism for stormwater, and that is an impervious fee. Impervious area is the area where water is not allowed to soak into the ground. This would be rooftops, streets, sidewalks. The water hits those services and simply runs off. We can charge people based on the amount of pervious area. One of the reasons that's a possibility is the impervious area is a good measure of how much of a problem is being caused by a particular property. There are pluses and minuses to both methods. We want to hear from the customers as to which one they feel is more equitable. The next question is how much? We had indicated about a $500 million problem. How fast should we go after addressing that issue? I'll give you some data on the next slide, letting you know what that kind of looks like. How often should we collect rates? We can collect the cost on a monthly basis. If we do, MSD probably has a good chance of collecting all the funds it charges for. The downside of that is it will cost the customers more. Monthly billing is more expensive than billing on an annual basis. If we bill annually, again, less expensive, but we probably have a better chance of some folks not paying the bill. The other question is how long should we collect this new revenue source? Should we sunset it? Should the voters have a chance to decide that that's enough, I want to spend my money elsewhere? We're going to find out what folks think about that, as well as any other additional questions they may have. The next slide is the bottom line to the issue. I've given 4 examples of annual revenues that could be collected to address these stormwater issues. I'll go over the $10 million and $40 million example. If we were to collect $10 million in annual revenue, that would result in about $6 million in construction. That remaining $4 million goes to design, working with property owners, and a big part goes towards easement acquisition. If we were to generate $6 million in construction dollars, depending on the method that we collect the revenues, the cost to the average customer would be about $10 per year. If you jump to the $40 million in annual revenue, you'll find that generates about $24 million a year in construction dollars, or based on our current backlog, with approximately a 20-year program to address all known issues. If the voters were to decide that, hey, that is a good place we want to go, the average cost to a customer would be about $40 per year. What is the timeline for considering new stormwater services? During the first half of 2017, we're going to gather public input and find out your thoughts, concerns, and desires as to what you would like to be able to consider for additional stormwater services. In the second half of 2017, MSD will develop a rate proposal based on the input we've gotten from the public, as well as our knowledge of the problem as a whole. During calendar 2018, we will convene our 15-organization rate commission. They will take a look at our recommendation, provide input, and we'll also have a very large public participation effort in which the customers will again get their chance to voice their opinions about future stormwater services. With that schedule, we anticipate that in April 2019, the public will have an opportunity to vote. With that, I'll turn the presentation over to LeComb, our Manager of Public Information.
As Brian briefly explained, MSD's Rate Commission is a public process. The Rate Commission is really meant to be the public's voice in MSD's rate-setting process, be it for wastewater or stormwater services. So with that in mind, if any member of the public has a question, they're certainly welcome to call me and my phone number and email address is listed here. Also, for the first half of 2017, we will have a survey and other information available at this link here, listed on the slide. And throughout 2017 as well, if members of the public would like for MSD representatives to come and talk to a neighborhood group, a Kiwanis club, or what have you about these issues, we would be more than happy to do that. Simply call me. But then here also you have the various social media handles for MSD Project Clear, and you can get more information about those efforts at those sites as well. To summarize, MSD is a government organization serving the citizens of the city of St. Louis and St. Louis County for the purposes of wastewater and stormwater management. Thus, we very much desire to have the public's input in this important rate-setting process. So again, we encourage the public to contact me individually or us as an organization with questions or comments, and we'll take that information, put it into the proposal we're going to take to our rate commission, and we'll have that information ready to share with the public when we go to the rate commission in early 2018. Thank you very much.